And now, Katie DeRaddo of A Grave Attraction, Restoring Resting Places, Genealogy Meets Preservation. Discover the hidden stories buried below headstones and the intersection of grave preservation and genealogy. Learn how cleaning reveals names and dates, while research uncovers the rich histories behind them, connecting us to the lives of those who came before. Katie DeRaddo is the passionate creator behind A Grave Attraction, the social media presence showcasing her cemetery preservation history and genealogical work. A Grave Attraction educates and inspires audiences about the importance of honoring our past through storytelling and preservation. Katie is based in Rochester, New York, and when not working in cemeteries, she works as a marketing manager for a health tech company. Please join me in welcoming Katie. I'll stop sharing and let you share. And you're muted.
All right,
There you go.
thank you for that introduction. I feel like I can actually speed right past mine. Again, my name is Katie DeRaddo, and today I'm going to talk to you about my restoring process, cemetery preservation in terms of cleaning headstones, my research process when it comes to diving in and learning about the people that headstones I clean, and then I'll talk about the intersection between cemeteries and genealogy. So, Paula did a great job at introducing me. Again, my name is Katie DeRaddo. You may know me as A Grave Attraction on social media. Passionate headstone cleaner, very amateur genealogist. And I started A Grave Attraction in 2022, and it has brought me to multiple states. And I've met some really cool people and cleaned some really cool graves doing the work I do. So I threw out the word cemetery preservation a minute ago, but what does that mean? This is a definition I really liked. I thought it fit, and then I'll talk a little bit more about it. So cemetery preservation is the care of a cemetery's historic features, like their monuments, grave markers, and structures, to ensure future integrity for future generations. And what falls under cemetery preservation? So maintenance is the first thing I have down here, and that is where I feel I fit in with cleaning headstones. It can also mean things like landscaping, mowing the lawn, such like that. Repairing and rehabbing, old stones break all the time, and many cemeteries will have some sort of a plan in place to fix those that are damaged due to just age. Disaster planning and rehabbing is mostly for a cemetery in an area that is affected by natural disasters. That happens as well and can damage headstones. So cemeteries in those areas may also have a disaster plan in place, a rehabbing plan for that such occurrence. And the last is documenting and mapping. And I added this in mostly because although a lot of cemeteries will have a map or documentations of their own, this is actually something people can participate in through a crowdsourcing app called Find a Grave, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with, where we can snap pictures of the headstones, GPS ping them to help other people find them, loved ones that are maybe trying to locate a headstone and maybe out of state. Finding a picture is always helpful. So that to me is what cemetery preservation encompasses. But why we are here today is really to talk about my headstone cleaning process and restoring the graves, and then how that all works together with genealogy. Before I even think to clean a headstone, there is some ethics that I always like to keep at the top of my mind, and something I want to share with you. I would say the first and most important is just the do no harm overarching theme of don't go in with the intention of disturbing monuments or causing damage. That is fairly common sense, especially to all of us who are here because we love history and we want to preserve it. Some cemeteries also have a handful of rules. You might see a sign like this, and some allow pets, some don't. Obviously, littering and cleaning up after yourself is just one of those rules that I think fits in with all cemeteries. And then when it comes to my work specifically, I have to specifically seek permission to play, essentially. And no one can just go into a cemetery and start cleaning headstones unless it is a direct family member's stone. In order to conduct my work, I seek specific permission. Sometimes I'll talk to the cemetery board, or I'll try to locate family if there are any that I can find, to get permission to clean the stones. Just to make sure we're all on the same page, and I do have that written and verbal permission. So those are the ethics I keep in mind before I even get started. Also, it's important to understand the materials you'll be working with or working on. There's many different types of stones. Here in upstate New York, we have a lot of granite and marble and slate. In some other areas, you might see limestone, sandstone, all sorts of other monuments. So it's important to know which stones you're working on, what material, and how the cleaning methods that I'll be talking about may or may not work for those pieces. One example is the bronze or metal plaques that veterans get don't clean the same as a traditional stone would. So just knowing the difference is important. Also, knowing what chemicals and what tools do more harm than good. We like to avoid harsh chemicals and tools. So no bleach. Bleach is actually a corrosive material that will eat away at the stone. So just over time doing way more harm than good. Again, no power washers. That is something that is too strong, too damaging. Really, the name of the game is gentle on our historic stones here. And metal tools are also a no-go. So metal brushes or scrapers. I always use the analogy that a stone is like your skin. Now, with our skin, it is okay to exfoliate, but unlike skin, stone will not regenerate itself. So even if you can't see a scratch, the microabrasion is there, and over time, it will just continue to get worse and degrade the stone. And then lastly, knowing what tools are most appropriate for the work that I do. I use cleaners like D2 biological solution. There's some other gentle, non-corrosive cleaners that are just standard cleaners in the industry. And also, like I mentioned, no metal, so soft brushes, plastic scrapers, and lots of water. And I'll get into why water is very important with the clean, but just knowing what tools are most appropriate. And again, if you are trying to clean a bronze, like veterans plaque, knowing what solutions work best, as D2 is not the best cleaner for that. So let's talk about the process, probably the most interesting part and why we're all here today. So my very first step is, again, not even cleaning yet, is kind of a pressure check. I make sure the stone is stable. I'll do this by actually going up to a stone and wiggling it a little bit, touching it. If there's any sense of wobbling, don't even touch it. I avoid stones that are unstable, anything that is severely chipped or cracked, or something that's already broken. I tend to just leave those be. You don't want to do more harm, so it's just best to, if a stone is a little bit shaky, just unfortunately let it be. My second step is to remove loose debris. So leaves, lawn clippings, just remove that all, just dust off the stone, just to know what I'm working with, see and assess what I'm working with, especially on the flat stones that are easy for a lawnmower to go over. They'll just get covered in clippings. Just removing all that without any solution, even just with a hand, clean that all off. And then the third step, and this is really getting into the good stuff, is applying the solution. And when I tell you I soak that stone with a cleaner, I mean it. I wet it thoroughly, front, back, all the sides. You don't see that all in my videos, but I will go over with a heavy hand of that solution. And then I allow it to sit for a couple minutes. And this is to loosen the grime, and it just makes the clean so much easier. You'll learn that in cleaning is the easier, the better. So, and that's also where water comes into play, which I'll talk a little bit about. My fourth step is scrubbing and scraping. I think this is probably the most interesting part for people in my videos. They like to watch me scrub away the years of weather and just time. So I'll first start with scraping away lichen or moss patches. Not in this video necessarily, but there are some stones that have big patches of lichen or moss on them. So getting that off. And then I'll go in with my scrubber and I'll start brushing away dirt and surface level grime. And this is where keeping the stone wet is very important. I would say more water equals less friction, and that really helps make the job easier. So just continuously spritzing on water as you go just makes the scrubbing easier. You don't have to go hard. Again, gentle is the name of the game when cleaning a old stone. And then step 5 and the last step is rinse and possibly repeat. This also may be a favorite part in my videos because people love watching me literally rinsing away the cleaning and the years of grime and really showcasing the stone that was underneath all of that weather. And then I'll reassess. Sometimes I need to do a second clean. If I do, I'll do the whole process again. If I don't, well, always, I will actually add more solution before I walk away and leave the stone and let it, take weeks to get a progress picture as in this video shows. Why I do this is because these solutions continue to work over time. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in the next slide. Not necessarily something I show in my videos of, showing me spraying and then walking away. I like to end it off on the rinse and then leave it as is. But do know that I will respray, recoat the whole situation again with a lot of solution and then let that solution work over time. And this is a good before and after. When I was working on Anne's stone, as you'll see in a minute, when I start scrubbing, her name will reappear after all this time. This is a really good example of a clean working over time. Not all stones will be back to perfect and bright and beautiful after one clean. That is actually more of the normal. Tough cleans take time and results may not be instant. As you can see, when I'm scrubbing Anne's, her name will start to reappear, and even after I rinse here, you'll see that it was a really good first clean, but I did spray and walk away after this, and the solution continued to work over time. So these solutions are made to get into a stone and really work from the inside out, cleaning everything that has sunk into that stone all the way out. And 2 months of progress, it really got into that engraving and worked its way into her little nooks and crannies. And this is an older stone, so also has weathering. So just years of micro abrasions due to weather. That solution got in there and continued to clean all of that out. So let's talk a little bit about my genealogical process. Again, I'm going to preface by saying I'm an amateur, and my process is mostly used to craft the stories for my videos. I know I'm not a professional at this. I have a lot to learn when it comes to maybe a more efficient way of researching and looking up things. I'll also mention that I never go into a clean knowing anything about the person that's buried there. It's an unbiased approach, and I'll say it kind of happened by accident, but I've just continued to go in. I go into a cemetery and clean stones that need it, not based on the story of the person and how interesting it might be for videos, because to me, that's not what this is about. It's about bringing all of history back to life. And so I go in unbiased and just learn what I can. And sometimes the stories can be pretty interesting. So how I do the genealogical part of my work. I first start personally by crafting an entire new ancestry tree based on the headstone information. Of course, headstone information might not always be accurate, but it is what I have, so that's what I start with. And then I'll start to cross-reference headstone stuff with other things I can find on Ancestry. I also take into account where the headstone was in the cemetery and if they were in a family plot, if nearby graves have similar last names, trying to make inferences on family members just to start building my tree. So in the next few slides, we're going to be following my research for Emma Beaumont, which was a video I posted a couple months ago. And so I started with her and I built the tree around her. Of course, we all know how important documents are to our research. So censuses, I love those things. I like to dig in there and you can find some really cool information on people, marriage certificates if you can find them, all sorts of information that can help solidify dates that a headstone might have incorrectly. It can also help solidify other names, family members, all the good stuff. I've also found that newspaper clippings can be helpful, and of course obituaries can be very handy, especially trying to nail down family ties. If it's a child who died young, that can help find parent relationships or vice versa, parent finding out their children relationships. So all sorts of documents. I really try to dig into what Ancestry provides to me, and then I'll go off on my own and try and see if changing the name a little bit might help unearth something if a name is spelled incorrectly or was translated incorrectly. I also mentioned earlier Find a Grave, and I do also use Find Graves to help a little bit. Of course, because it's a crowdsourcing app, not everything is accurate, but it can help. It can point you in the right direction or at least give you some hints. Bios might not always be correct, but sometimes they are, or they provide some interesting information. I found pictures of the deceased that I was not able to necessarily find an Ancestry. So of course, all good hints, if they are correct, with an app like this, just use with discretion. But I find it a great place to also look, just in case. And then the last step, which is not necessarily something everybody will do, is putting what I've learned into words for a video script. So with Emma, as we've been following, I was able to find parent names, birth, other family dynamics for her. The census told me her career path. She was a servant for her entire life, and some other information in that census as well. And then her death certificate helped solidify her death date because I was unable to find an obituary. So all of that together, I craft a video script, and then I'll go and I will record and edit my videos. So those are the two pieces, right? We're bringing together the cemetery, the physical aspect, and then the genealogy, which can be physical if you have books and paper documents, but more than not right now in our day and age, it's more virtual, right? We're all online sifting through things. So let's talk a little bit about bringing these two pieces together. And I really want to end by talking about that and then how social media has helped bring it all together for me personally. So not everybody may initially see the intersection between cemetery preservation and genealogy, but this chart is in no way all-encompassing, but it does show some of the overlaps that I initially thought of. So as you can see, nice Venn diagram right in the middle. We know that both ensure future generations can learn from them. Both provide names and dates that might be helpful for somebody looking for somebody. And I do really think that both can bridge generations and connect the old and the new, the past and the present, just so we can keep history alive. And then I just want to talk again more about the reflection in social media and the rewards of my work. I would say sharing history on social media has been so rewarding, vast and great in all sorts of ways. I get messages and emails all the time from people all over the world asking for tips on cleaning their stones or asking me to come clean them, and which I have been able to do over the last summer. I was able to fulfill some clean requests from some followers, which was so special. I've uncovered interesting stories a few weeks ago. If you follow me on social media, or if you want to go back and take a look, I did a video on a woman named Susan Hilda Mars, who lived most of her later adult life in a psychiatric hospital. And because of that, her death date was never engraved on her headstone. So it was a little bit of a mystery. It did have a happy ending. We did find her death date. All is well. But just a story like that, bringing that to the forefront, bringing that back to life. I do fear that Susan Hilda, her life story would not have ever been told if it wasn't for me doing a little bit of digging myself. And of course, being able to do talks like this is so wonderful and rewarding, and talking about my work and connecting with people who share interests and want to learn a little bit. And so I just really enjoy being able to do this. And I hope that you choose to follow me on social media. And I'm on all major platforms. If you have questions on headstone cleaning and preservation work, feel free to email me or message me on social media. I try my best to be as responsive as possible, especially on social media. And I'm happy to, chat with you about tips or tricks when it comes to cleaning. If you have a family stone that you're looking to do work on, I would love to help you out and just chat with you and point you in the right direction for that. And hopefully I can learn a little bit and somebody can point me in the better direction to do for genealogy and efficiency of my research. So thank you again. I'm going to not share my screen anymore so I can see everybody's face. And I know that we're going to open up for questions. So I'm very excited. I know that there was a couple chats. So yes.
There are a couple in the chat box. I'm gonna start with a couple though. How did you get started in all this?
Yes. So I got started, I would say officially in 2020 when everybody was, stuck at home. What better thing to do than to walk around a cemetery when you couldn't go anywhere but outside. So I walked around my local cemetery. Most historic cemetery in the area is called Mount Hope Cemetery here in Rochester. If you're not familiar, that's where some prominent names like Susan B. Anthony and Frederick Douglass are buried. So taking a lot of walks around there, and then I
imagine cleaning all those "I voted" stickers off of her stone.
Yes. Actually, I can talk a little bit about that. They do a really cool thing where they actually put a plastic covering over her and her sister's stone, so there's no residue on either of their stones of stickers, and they actually take the plastic off and then they keep that for years, and then they'll put a new plastic right over it. And next
cool.
time there's an election. So I started volunteering for Mount Hope and working with their team, their big team, and then I went off on my own. So, and then I officially started my my social media career, I suppose, in 2022, sharing the work I do.
Okay. During your cleaning process, was that a wooden skewer you used to clean out the letters of the name on the headstone?
Yes. So bamboo skewers, like if you go to the dollar store or anywhere and you go to the grilling section, a bamboo or wood skewer is great to get into engravings and just clean it out. Again, it's not metal, so it's completely safe. And the bamboo is, a soft wood anyway, not damaging at all. That's a really good tool and tip to use to clean out deep engravings, especially, some of them are really deep and narrow. So getting something in there, really helpful.
Okay. Are you insured?
So because I'm only doing cleaning, I actually fall under the insurance of the cemetery. So I personally do not need insurance to do the work I do. Now, if I was repairing or doing, actual repair work, that is where insurance comes into play. But because I do not do that, cleaning does fall under the cemetery. in my case. If you are cleaning for a family's, again, you do not need insurance to clean your own family's headstone.
Where do you purchase the D2 and how much does it take to clean an average stone?
Yeah, so D2 can be bought, not sponsored, from a company called Atlas Preservation. That is, I would say they're very well known in the cemetery cleaning space. They sell all sorts of materials, not just cleaning, they sell repairing materials as well. You can buy it there. You can also just buy it online if you just search it. There's many places to buy it online. Another product, if online is not something you want to do, or I will say D2 is a more expensive cleaner, there's something called wet and forget. And that's actually what a lot of cemeteries use because you can buy it at Lowe's, Home Depot. It's also a concentrate. So you can water it down and it just goes much further. It's more bang for your buck that way. And how much is used, it depends on the stone. I would say when I say I soak the stone, I do mean it, but I have a huge, like, gosh, I think it's probably 5, maybe even 10-gallon jug that has a sprayer attached to it. And I use only less than a gallon per stone, unless it's a big one. It depends on the stone, how dirty the stone is. I really don't chintz out. I just spray and spray and spray until I feel like it's got its good soaking.
Excellent. Do you have a standard request for families to allow you to clean their family member's headstone?
As far as like a standard request is, I just have kind of a drafted email in place, and it's very similar to the email that I send to cemeteries, just informing them the work I do, saying that I do this completely volunteer. I do not charge for any of my work, and that goes for the cemeteries as well. Just offering the service, and if they're interested, let me know. It is hard to find family members, so I usually, if I am seeking specific family member, I try to run through the cemetery for that because a lot of times they have more clues into that than I can find. So just a standard draft email that I have, kind of like I said, explaining the work I do, offering the service if they're interested, something I just love to do if they let me.
Okay. And that kind of goes along with how do you go about getting the permission of officials and families? Do you find them online? I found a lot of the cemeteries I visit have no information other than a sign with a name, no contact info, and no rules posted.
Yes. So if you run into that with a cemetery, what I've learned is, especially smaller cemeteries, go to your county clerk, talk to them. They either might be the ones that actually are, in charge of the cemetery themselves, or they have contact for who it is. If all you can find is a name, a phone number, say the phone number is outdated, the email that you find is outdated, start with your county clerk's office. They usually can help you out because they'll have some sort of information for you.
Excellent. And so somebody beat you to the wet and forget, asking, have you ever used it? And saying how it's sold. She said a state cemetery group in the Midwest recommends it.
Yes, yes. And wet and forget is what Mount Hope Cemetery uses, and lots of other cemeteries, big, small, historic or not, it's a good bang for your buck. You can just buy it while you're walking around Lowe's. You'll just find it. And even it's also good to use on patios and things. So it's something that I just keep in my house too.
How often do you have to go clean stones a second time?
That is also very dependent. Because of where I live, as I mentioned earlier, black mold is a serious problem on these stones, and that's not something you can really scrub away. You have to, it takes time and the solution to do its work. So there's one in particular for a man named John Johnson, and his stone is just a simple flat stone, but it has some terrible black mold, just all due to age and just lots and lots of weathering and time. I have been actually cleaning that stone for 3 years, and I'm just simply going back and not doing anything crazy, just a spray and a scrub, once or twice a season just to try to break that black mold down. And it's been really tricky. So it depends on what kind of weather you're working with, essentially. If it's black mold, that's going to take time and a lot of spraying and time just for that to work through. If it's just simple lichen and moss, one clean and then a spray and walk away should really do the job.
Okay. How direct an ancestor does it need to be to clean the stone? Your second great aunt, for example, ancestors from 150 or more years ago?
I would say I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. That's up to your discretion. I know that in my family, I am able to clean pretty much as far back as I can find. That's also a fun little quest, is finding, deep ancestors and their headstones, if they're still existent or if they're broken. I think that is a personal choice. And if it's something that you feel, oh, maybe I should just bring this up to the family, your own family, and talk it through, I think that's just based on your discretion. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer.
Okay. What type of appliance do you use to spray the water? And do you get water on site or from the cemetery, or do you have to bring some with you?
Yeah, so similar to the big pump spray that I have the solution and I have the same one for water. So a lot of the cemeteries I work in do not have water access. So I try to bring gallons and gallons with me just to have it on hand. More is always better. If you don't use it, it doesn't go bad. So one of the new cemeteries I have, it does have water. If there are spigots that work, those are wonderful, but I bring loads of water with me just to have it on hand. And then I say personally, when I go out and clean, when my solution is depleted, I'm done for the day. It's time to go home. By then I've done a handful of stones and then I can call it a day. So, but I bring tons of water. And if I run out of water, then that's my sign that you're done for the day.
Got it. Danette suggests that your local funeral home can also help with those cemeteries you can't find information for.
Yes, absolutely. I completely agree with that. That's actually not a resource I've tapped into, but when I'm interested in tapping into, because like you said, they can probably point you in a good direction as well.
And might know where the families are.
Exactly.
Do you accept donations?
I do. There is a donation button on, if you go to my Instagram, I have a link tree. So I do accept donations, but definitely not anything that I expect. I just do this really volunteer, and it is my favorite hobby. It's how I connect with nature, and it's just a wonderful summer activity for me.
Cool. Can you explain how to clean the bronze plates?
Yeah, so actually, to be totally honest, I'm not a good person to ask about that. That is not something I have done. I do know that there are special cleaners, and I can reach out to somebody who also does cleaning and see if she can give me the name for that, because it is escaping my mind, but she does talk about it a lot. And then that's something that I can have you all email out to the group here, but there's a special cleaner for it. But again, that's actually not something I've ever done personally. So
Okay.
yes, and as I just saw an Ann said, Atlas also might have the cleaner, probably easy to find on their website too. If you're just poking around, they probably have labeled it very nicely, very specific cleaner.
Got it. Okay, Danette says I have let me count the G's. Five times great, no, is that five times great grandfather or four times great grandfather? Anyway, a distant ancestor whose gravesite is on his former property. It has gone through numerous property owners since his death in 1857. He left instructions in his will for descendants to be able to come to his gravesite.
Okay.
What advice would you give to approach the newest owner to attend the grave?
Ooh, that's an interesting one. That's actually not something I've done before, but I think I think you just have to go in and be honest and say, this is my ancestor. And if you have any information that can verify that it has been stated somewhere that he would like ancestors to be able to access said grave headstone, just try to reach out. Neutral convening situation. Maybe not go to the house right away. Try to contact them in a neutral area. If you can find an email, find a phone number, start there. Just tell them, I know that my ancestor is buried here. I would love to see the grave, see what its condition is, and then just explain the situation. I know that, as far as I believe, I just bought a house and I feel like this is something I read. When you buy a property, they're supposed to disclose that, hey, there are burials here. So the person should know that somebody might come looking at some point for said ancestor's headstone. So just try to reach out and just explain the situation, and hopefully they'll, get back to you and be open.
Yeah, I was going to suggest a letter before just showing up. Sometimes you got to do what you got to do, but
But that's no fun.
Well, if you don't want them coming out after you with a shotgun, that might be.
Well, we were up in Caroline County and we innocently knocked on the door. Come to find out that there was a feud going on between the guy that lived on one side of the road and the guy that lived on the other side of the road, because they were two family houses from back in the time, and the guy that's on the guy that was the family person is fairly well known in Caroline County preservation circles. And so we wandered into the midst of this mess. And what he's mad about is that when the guy bought the Civil War house, he buried his own people in the cemetery.
Oh, no.
So instead of being all my husband's relatives, it's my husband's relatives plus 3 other people.
And it's their property.
Yeah, it's their property, so it's fair enough. But
yeah, but it was causing great consternation.
Yes, so you don't know what kind of situations like that you're going to walk into with the questions. All right. Can you recommend a water sprayer?
Yeah, so I might not have the right name, but off the top of my head, I believe it's called a king sprayer. Essentially, if you just go on Amazon and you look up like a water sprayer, I always recommend getting the battery pump. So there's a top that can screw onto these big gallon jugs that have a sprayer, and it's battery operated. You can recharge it, and that way you don't have to hand pump it. I had one of those, and it's an extra workout, which is fine, but not necessarily the most efficient. So if you get this, if you get this like screw on top, it will pressurize it for you and just saves a lot of time. So believe it's called a king sprayer. If you just go to Amazon and just look up, battery operated sprayer, it's not a powerful situation. It's not like obviously power washer size or anything, but it does help.
Hang on, I'm answering one of the other questions. Okay. Do you use a different cleaner or process for soft limestone versus marble or granite?
So limestone is actually not really a stone I see much up here. And slate, I will use the same cleaning method and the same cleaners. That's fine. Marble, granite, any of those stones are completely fine to use the D2 like I mentioned. Slate, you can use it. A lot of slate up here unfortunately is broken, so I don't really clean that. But limestone is not one that I've actually run into up here. So I would have to do some research and get back to you on if my cleaning solution is the best to use on that material.
Okay. Do you use distilled water or just tap water?
Just tap. Tap's all you need.
And we're getting a lot of comments about the access to graves on private property. State law generally sets rules, and then we've got a couple of people quoting Virginia and North Carolina. Virginia law also ensures that family members have egress rights to enter, leave a cemetery on private property. Politeness works best, of course. And what were the comments about? In North Carolina, state law guarantees access to one's family members' graves, but one must contact the current owner of the land for permission. The law varies by state.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and I completely agree. I think laws anywhere vary. So doing your due diligence and seeing what laws might, but I really think in most cases, you're going to have a right to see a family member's headstone if it is on a private property. But like somebody mentioned, being polite, just being open and transparent about why you're looking probably goes a long way.
Yeah, Lisa pointed out North Carolina guarantees but provides no great way of enforcing that guarantee. It's a particular problem for rural African American cemeteries, unfortunately. All right, that is what we've got. The last call for questions. You can also raise your hand. We'll call on you or turn on your mic. But I think we got all the questions. So thank you very much, Katie. This was very informative and very fun.
Yes, thank you. And before we leave, I will throw my contact information, and I did see somebody wanted links to my social media. I'll throw them in the chat right now if I can do that very quickly. So if you do think
I did post the ones that you gave us, but feel free to post them again.
Oh, perfect. And if you do think of something after, just reach out and I'm happy to help.
Sounds good. Thank you very much.